So this meeting is being convened by video conference with, in compliance with Governor Cuomo's executive orders, which suspend certain provisions of the open meetings law to allow municipal boards to convene meetings via video conferencing without in-person attendance by the public. In addition, the public has been provided with the ability to view, hear, participate in the meeting. A transcript will be provided at a later date. There is a quorum of the members for the meeting at this time. The link to the live stream of the meeting has been provided to the public, and a video of the meeting will be made available on public access television, as well as a link on the town's website. Further, all submission materials and agendas are available to be viewed at the town's website. So let's call the meeting to order. We have 3 members here, I think. Last count, yeah, 4 members, right? Dick, Tom, and Eldad's here. Right? Is Eldad?
Correct.
I'm here, very much here.
Oh, okay, very good. I didn't see you on the screen. There you are. Okay, sorry. Okay, we go to our first item. This is a public hearing for Untitled 289 Croton Dam Road. This is an application for legalization of an accessory apartment. This is a continuation, actually, of a public hearing from January 29, 2021. So I guess we do not require a motion to open the public hearing. This is a continuation of the public hearing, as I understand. Is that correct, Jennifer?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the applicants here, we have, are there any changes at all? I know, maybe Sabrina, why don't we turn to you and you can just summarize where we are, because it seems that the applicant has been very responsive to the issues that we talked about last time.
Sure. Just to refresh everybody's memory, it's a 1.03 acre property in a 2-acre single family neighborhood or zoning district. The house was constructed in 1967. There were front and side yard variances that were granted to the property. It was a 3-bedroom home initially, which has been converted into a 2-bedroom home with a 2-bedroom accessory apartment. The application before you is to approve the 2-bedroom accessory apartment in the lower level of the home. There is no earth moving associated with this application. It's all just for the accessory apartment. It was a type 2 action under secret, so you didn't have any further environmental review to undertake. And since the last meeting, we had gone through and reviewed the plan set. There needed to be some changes made to the zoning conformance table. The applicant has addressed most all of my comments, with the exception of referencing the previous variances that were granted on the site plan in the zoning conformance table as a footnote, so that we can kind of close the loop on the shortcomings in that table. And then a note that the lot width is a pre-existing non-conformity that should be noted as well. And that's really all of my comments. Everything else was addressed with their most recent submission or the revised submission. And, I'll defer to Bob to see if he has any outstanding issues he wants to discuss.
I have no further comment. The applicant did a great job addressing all my comments from my previous memo. So therefore, I have no comments to be placed in the resolution. And
it's a first.
they did a great job.
Good to hear, right?
Did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It is before you for a public hearing tonight. And we also drafted a resolution for your consideration.
Right, thank you. Any comments, questions from board members on this application? No. Okay. Pam, do we have anyone attending at all watching this?
We do.
Show?
No, we do. But no one has their digital hand raised yet.
Okay. So we'll take questions or comments from anyone interested or from the public on this application. Okay. Anything from the applicant at all on it? Seems like we're in very good shape here.
I just have a couple of questions, but it's more, I guess, procedural. So I guess, maybe after I could just ask a couple of questions for next steps. And
okay. Well, not seeing any questions or comments from the public. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? None. So the motion is carried. The public hearing is closed, and we do have before us, staff has prepared a draft resolution as we instructed last time around. So we have that before us. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the draft resolution? And perhaps this might be a good time to take any questions from the applicant with regard to next steps and procedure.
Sounds good. Yeah, so it seems like this is going to go through, so thank you again. So once the resolution, and we're going to add those a few other comments, we actually did get that zoning document from Felicia this morning. So we will put that into the drawing with your notes, Sabrina. So we'll take care of that. So we'll resubmit that as soon as possible, and then I assume the resolution can be fully submitted. At that point, do you just recommend this to the building and we then submit for building permit? Is that the next step?
Bob, Sabrina?
Basically, Sarita, if you don't mind, basically the conditions are nominal. And basically, once the conditions are done, I think there's 2 or 3 in there. Basically, I'll sign it and write a memo to the chairman for signature. And I believe most of the resolutions do allow signature outside the planning board meeting. And once that's done, I'll give a copy to the building inspector, and then you can come in for your building permit.
Okay, great. And then I just have one more question. So the money that we put in escrow, was that used up, or does that get transferred over somewhere?
If there's any refund, write an email to Patricia Mingione at the finance department. She'll let you know what it is. And then I'll write a memo to her saying it's okay to usually don't release that money until you get your CO though.
Gotcha. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. Anyone, any questions, comments on the draft resolution that's before us? If not, is there a motion to adopt the resolution as drafted?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay, second by Tom. Well, I guess we have to take a roll call on a resolution. Dick? Okay, thumbs up. Tom?
Aye.
Eldad?
Thumbs up. Aye.
Okay. And Kanan is not here. So, and I'm in favor, so it's 4-0 and 1 absent. So the motion's carried and the resolution is approved. And you're all set as far as having to deal with us and on to the next grand level. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Okay, very good.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, we move now to our next item. This is an informal appearance before the board. This is Balco, 6 Conti Lane. Is it Balco or Balco?
It's
okay.
Balco.
Balco, okay. This is an application for a site development plan approval, subdivision amendments, clearing grading limit lines, steep slopes, tree removal, stormwater management, and erosion and sedimentation control permits. This is at 6 Conti Lane. So we're seeing this for the first time. Alan, do you want to
Sure.
lead into it and tell us about it?
Would you like me to share the screen?
Yes, thank you.
Could. Does that work? You can see it?
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
excellent. I just want to confirm that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board. So this is, as you know, for the site development plan approval of a new house on an existing vacant lot, which is at the, I'll call it the north end, for lack of a better term, or the end of Conti Lane. I guess it's the last house in the Conti Lane subdivision, which I believe dated from the 1990s. I think it was like 1996. The property itself is 65,911 square feet. I called it roughly triangular in shape, for lack of a better term. It's kind of maybe like a bat wing. It's at the very end of the cul-de-sac. It is in the Oliver Pond Basin watershed. So it's outside of the New York City water supply watershed. And say the lot's currently vacant. I'll just point out there is an existing state wetland and town regulated wetland to the, I'll call it to the north. North is actually this way, but let's call this north for the purposes of this discussion. And the 100-foot buffer actually runs through the property right here. So that's this line right here is a 100-foot buffer. So it's proposed to construct a new 4-bedroom house on the property. Water will be obtained from existing main in Conti Lane, wastewater disposed of in a new septic system to be constructed on the lot. Part of the features of the house, the driveway access from Conti Lane, there's a deck in the back of the house. And there are some retaining walls due to topography because there is a sharp drop from Conti Lane to the rear of the lot. We had submitted, I'll just go to the grading plan just so you could see it. Whoops. We had submitted the building and lot coverage calculations and floor area calculations. And what is being proposed is less than what would be permitted, what is permitted on the property. There are a number of tree impacts on the property. It's fairly, the property is rather unique in a way because during the construction of the subdivision, maybe I can show it on topography. I'll just flip screens here. During the construction of the subdivision, there was a large rock mound of broken rock, which has been placed on the property. And obviously the trees were eliminated from this area. But the development itself beyond this is actually quite wooded. And we're proposing actually to remove a total of 32 trees from the property. And the plan, you can see that on this plan here. And there is also, a lot of the trees are from the septic area, some to the rear of the house where we want to have a little bit of a yard. And some trees just for access into the property. We have avoided the 100-foot setback in its entirety. There's no impacts at all within the 100-foot wetland buffer. And we are proposing to, part of the plan too, to plant trees. And because of the number of trees, it's like 44 trees that are being proposed. We did show some trees being planted into kind of filling in some places in the wetland buffer area too. There's like 15 trees, I think it was, here being planted in the wetland buffer, and the rest of them are all within the property itself, you know, to screen it from the neighbors to the, I'll call it from the west and the east. So that is what's being proposed. I know that some of the comments dealt with the clearing and grading limit line. I know it's indicated in red here on the file, the map. The development of this lot was actually reviewed by the planning board, I believe it was in 2006. There's a resolution that was adopted in September 5 of 2006 for site plan and clearing and grading limit line amendment. It also involved steep slope and tree removals. And we had thought that the clearing and grading limit line amendment for the project in 2006 had superseded the clearing and grading limit line from, I guess this is the 1996 subdivision. You know, as you can see, this is marked in red here. And so we actually did modify, just as the 2006 plan had done that too. So it is something that I didn't think we would be requesting, but apparently we, I suppose, have to.
So what is it? The red line represents what? The 2006 line or
No.
the 1996 line?
The 96 line. And you can see it was violated with the development of the subdivision. People put rock around it.
Right.
You know, there was this little tongue here as well. That's where rock was placed in addition. You know, so I mean, just saying, This is like large boulders and rock that have been placed throughout the developable area of the site, including beyond the clearing grading limit line. So it is something that any development on this property would have to address.
Does the topo currently reflect the rock mounds, or is
Yes.
this a topo before the mounds?
No, this is post mounds. So actually the topo that we're showing on our plans does indeed reflect just this. So it is something that obviously will have to be, you can see the sort of mounds are all sitting under here. So it is something that will have to be removed. A lot of the rock that is here we'll end up using to construct some of the stone walls in the property. Some may be used as some fill material as well. We'll see how that all goes. One of the features also on this was this dirt travel way that was sort of constructed. It's a treeless area. It's actually fairly compact soil. And I believe it was probably constructed. It's also in the original topo, this called the dirt travel way, which is kind of, I believe it was done as part of the work in placing the rock material, which, as I point out, is here on this property.
So are you representing that the rock that is there, the debris that we see there, will basically stay on site and be used in rock walls, or do you anticipate that you're going to actually have to remove excess rock and fill and
We
debris?
actually think we can use it all on some of the stone walls that are here. We really do. That's what we're anticipating. We don't believe we're going to have to remove it. There are places too where we can use it as fill, crush rock under, fill them, just place the soil on top. But I think in all these walls here that we will be able to actually use it. And so that's, anyway, that's what's being proposed on this property. It's somewhat unique in that sense because it's been, I'll call it perhaps abused in that fashion from the original subdivision. But anyway, so what's being proposed again is a 4-bedroom single-family house that meets the setback requirements and meets all the parameters for building and lot coverage and floor area.
Alan, it seems to me that we'll need to have some information in terms of just where this debris is going to go underneath fill, because if we just have inadequate fill on top of rock, we're going to have a hard time with the tree replanting and the survivability of these plants and trees. So, I know Dennis has been looking at the plan and looking at the where you're scheduling to replant trees, but that can really be a very negative factor, of course, for tree sustenance if they're just going to be stuck on top of rock with just a little bit of topsoil on top.
Well, most of the actual rock area is really about here.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, is it going to stay there, or is it going to be moved out of there?
No, it's going to be moved out of here. So
Yeah,
most of the trees are actually being located well outside of this area.
Well, outside the area where the rock is now. But what I'm saying is, what I think you're saying, maybe I'm misunderstanding, is that rock mound is going to be spread out, either reused in walls or also spread out, and then fill will go on top of it to level out the property.
No, we're only thinking of maybe it's fill under paved areas only.
Oh, okay, okay.
That won't be. It will not be placed in other locations like that.
Okay.
If it is, it'll be deep enough. I mean, but I don't suspect we're going to place it in the yards here. I really think it's going to wander places like the driveway and really in the walls. That's where I think it's primarily going to go.
Okay, I think you'll need to state that though, so that we have that information. I mean, that's fair enough.
Yeah. And we all have the memos and we were reviewing them. And obviously we're going to address comments in the memoranda.
Right.
Submitted by everyone.
Okay, Sabrina, do you want to run through yours and summarize where we are? And
Sure. Sure. It is a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, so no further environmental review is necessary. They did provide coverage information and, they're well within limits. They also appear to meet all zoning setbacks, which is good. The one thing is, the one thing that I wanted to note is the clearing and grading limit line. And, Alan, it seems very logical what you're saying with the rock boulder needing to repurpose it on site, that, it was created and the clearing and grading limit line was exceeded then. But we need some documentation regarding that. So showing the original clearing and grading limit line, maybe shading in the rock piles, really providing more detail so that, it makes sense to the board, because I don't know that the planning board will want to penalize and kind of say, well, if you're going to take from here, you need to add over here, but it'll give them enough information to visually see where the rock piles are, where the original line was exceeded, and then help us define a new clearing and grading limit line. Because, when I looked at your plan set, it was like, well, how much are you exceeding the approved, and then looking at it and saying, well, these are the rock piles, it was previously exceeded, so just to provide more information. As I said before, the setbacks may change based on the clearing and grading limit line and the decisions of the board. There's a wall near the cul-de-sac that looks to be in a right of way.
Yeah. We'll correct that.
Yeah, and then the application includes removal of 32 trees. I'm sure Dennis will have comments regarding that. Making sure that everything is in keeping with mitigation requirements. And I'm sure Bob has commented on, I'll defer to him on stormwater requirements. But I think the biggest thing right now is just to resolve for you to resolve the clearing and grading line.
Right. One of the questions I have, if I may ask, is that I had thought that the clearing grading limit line, which I think almost extended to the 100-foot wetland setback back in 2006, was the new, because there was a resolution of approval, but maybe it wasn't filed, or the 1990.
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
Alan, can I ask,
Yes,
was anything ever recorded in the Westchester County Clerk's office amending that? Because if it was just the resolution, and that second step of recording it in the Westchester County Clerk's office wasn't taken, then it wouldn't have become effective.
Yeah, Jennifer, they never proceeded with that. They just went to the planning board and got the resolution. They never satisfied the conditions, so that all expired. So to
Right.
Jen's point, it was never filed in the county, so it really doesn't mean much right now.
I think what the best thing to do would be to develop a separate figure which shows the rock pile, the clearing grading limit line, and the exceedance of it. This way, it's very clear to the planning board. I think
Right.
that's-
Right, and and it's great that you included the clearing and grading limit line, but you should put it on the site plan too.
Yes, agreed. It was on the site plan actually, but it didn't show up as clearly as I wanted.
Well, they show it nice on the survey. I would just get the AutoCAD and put it in your plan set, because the surveyor did a nice job.
Yeah.
Getting it from the filed map.
I will do that. Indeed, it shall be done.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Relative to the wetland setback line, it has certainly shrunk and has moved. I guess with 100 foot, but it's when you look at the little drawing with the red and the blue, it strikes me that the wetland setback line is in two places.
Yeah,
You look at the big drawing, it's much closer to the property line.
the
So
Dick,
that's one question I hope is not going to be a problem here. The other one is with the tentative location of the trees along the dirt road, or the dirt driveway, I should say. It looks like the trees are going to be kind of in the way for any activity that requires going to the secondary septic area. So maybe there's a way to drive in there with the way these trees are set up. some of them may be better, if better positioned so that vehicles can get into both the primary and the secondary.
Okay.
Dick, I had a question also about that wetland. It looks like there are two, I'm referring to the survey, which is I think the one that Dick's referring to. And the survey shows two wetland setbacks lines, which one looks to be following and is labeled as 100 feet from the wetland itself. And then there's another one, which is a sort of a wavy line, which seems to wander around, and it's on the survey and it refers to some previous mapping. But that wetland boundary, that one doesn't appear in the site plan. What's the history of this wetland boundary, and does it have any effect at this point?
Well, what I know is that the wetlands were delineated for the 2004, 2006 application by John Crow. It was then survey located, and we have been trying to also get the DEC out there just to verify its location. And I guess one of the questions that I have, if DEC verifies its location as it was delineated by John Crow, would that suffice for the planning board, or would you be looking to have it redelineated as well? Because my understanding was this was the wetlands as it was, delineated for the application was for the planning board in the early 2000s. So it must have been verified by the town, because otherwise I don't think the application would have gone forward.
But hasn't that delineation expired? Don't we require it to be updated when we have a new application?
Well, we're seeking again to have the New York State DEC. It is a DEC wetland as well. So we're actually seeking to have them verify it.
So typically we require the wetland to be verified within the year.
Right.
What so where did this? I guess I'm still sort of in the dark here.
Right.
It sounds as though what we're saying, what the applicant is saying is well, gee, we don't know what that. I'm paraphrasing here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't know where that line came from. It's on the survey, but we're going to ignore it, and we're going to use other data to establish a wetland boundary, which we are honoring on our site plan. How does the town? What's the planning board's position on this? Can we just ignore a wetland boundary that's on a survey without some confirmation of its validity?
Well, I think the answer is that we are going to have to require a relook at this. It's going to be again redefined on the map. Again, it's just flat out expired. And I think, Tom, you raised a very, very good point, because I don't know. We were out in this property a long, long time ago, and before this mound was created, there were difficulties on this particular lot, as I recall, and some of that was this delineation of wetlands. So I guess we are. This is a major issue.
Guys, Robert, I just put on this line in red.
Uh-huh.
That's when the Conti subdivision came in the 90s on this, and that I would suspect the line I just drew in red, that's the wetlands boundary from the delineation they did in like 1994, 1995.
Right.
And that was put on there on the filed map from that delineation. I guess the one they did now in 2002 obviously went back quite a bit. So, I mean, I don't know what you guys want to do, but generally speaking, anything within 1 year time, they should do a new delineation, and the planning board has that, authority, to Sabrina's point, to make them redelineate it. But that's where that line came from that Tom's talking about. That was from a delineation done probably 25 years ago.
And I think there's another important point, is based on my recollection, is our delineation may or may not coincide with the DEC's. We have different regulations here in town versus the DEC, so that you can have some variance in these lines. So I've seen this, I think, in the past, where the town's line was either more aggressive, less aggressive, depending upon our rules and our regulations. So again, I would think that we would have to have Dennis and go out there with the professionals from the applicant and relook at this. It's a great point, Tom, that you picked up here. Very,
Well,
very important.
What's curious to me is that the states line, I suppose the states line is a wetland boundary that we're looking at, which goes from W1 to W9, from left to right. It's suspiciously rectilinear, and wetlands don't behave that way. So I wonder if that's sort of a legal boundary which was not necessarily that carefully defined in the field. I just don't. It looks a little suspicious to me that maybe is not as carefully delineated as maybe it should be. The wetland boundary, which Bob has helpfully indicated in red, looks much more like a wetland setback boundary because it's more natural in its geometry. So there just seems to be something fuzzy here, and I agree, Bob, that while the state may have their boundaries, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't, be sure that they coincide with what our criteria are.
Right, right.
Well, we will end up having it redelineated for you.
Yep.
And resurveyed. I will say, I'll just say many years experience working through Evans Associates, I have seen boundaries that do these sorts of things. But that being said, we'll have it redelineated anyways.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Because I know how they hang flags.
Okay.
So, on the Bob, can I comment on the grading clearing limit line?
Sure, sure.
It seems to me that now that we actually have a proposal for a building here, for a home here, from what I can see, generally speaking, it seems to me like the design, the home itself, and the site planning of it, all appears to be pretty much in sync with what this site at the end of this cul-de-sac anticipated, and the neighborhood anticipates. From my point of view, it feels like it fits properly on its lot, and I'm willing to throw out, and I imagine all of us are, throw out the existing grade and clearing limit line. Maybe it's useful to understand what that area is, so that when we draw a new one, we get equal compensation, if that's important to us. But I'd be willing to throw that out and start over and draw the grading and clearing limit line with respect to the application, rather than have the application conform to the historical one.
I think that makes good sense.
Yeah, I'll concur with that. This was a subdivision intended to be developed as a single family home. Seems like it's compliant with zoning. Getting equal compensation makes sense to me. And then I guess the only question is just the status of this wetland line or the wetland buffer. But this seems otherwise relatively straightforward to me.
Yep. Good. Bob, did you want to run through your comments? I know you have a memo on this as well. And then Dennis.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'll start off with the stormwater comments, guys. Basically, my stormwater comments are nominal in nature. I just had some comments with the different types of hydrologic curve numbers that I felt should be used. I think it might have just been a typo in the report. ST1. ST2 was the design flows indicated on the storm pipe table. Every time Alan does these, he does a hydraulic flow for the piping leading to the stormwater systems. I think it should be 100-year, because I just want to make certain that when you do have a 100-year storm and everything's sized for a 100-year storm, it goes into the conveyance system and will not back up based on the 25 years. So basically, I'm making them go from 25 to 100-year just to up those sizes just a little bit, but it will probably be good nonetheless. SC3, basically, they're using a, hydrodynamic separator, which is now allowed by DEC for pre-treatment into the stormwater infiltration units. I just want to have them give make certain from the manufacturer that it can accept the flow rate for 1.44 CFS. I'd just like to see that on a plan so everyone's on the same page on that. SC4, He has good reason not to do the percolation testing. Alan has a wealth of experience with this. So they're going to do it probably within the next coming weeks. When they do, please call up Terry Allen so he can witness that based on obviously Appendix D of the DEC manual. SC5 is just provide some backup calcs, Alan, on the ORV min as per Section 4.3 of the New York State DEC manual. Just like everyone said, I was actually around when they were doing this construction project, and the contractor back there has piled all the shot rock pretty much from the construction of the roadway, quite a bit of blasting, all blast rock. Obviously, he never came back to haul it off site. It's been there ever since for about 25 years, and the surveyor was so kind to pick it up. Based on a review of the grading plans, it appears that the facilities for the on-site wastewater treatment system and the stormwater is all wholly outside of the blast rock. However, I would be and am concerned in a discussion with the building inspector that you might want to do some cut and fill volumes on this, to Robert's point before, because as you know, for the footings for the building will have to be sit on undisturbed soil. So you might want to go back, and I'd recommend you go back and get the existing topo that was done for the original subdivision in 1995 from the engineer back then, and then plot it out, Alan, and do a average end area to see what the volumes are, to see what you have to take out. It might be pretty substantial, because I don't think, maybe you might want to do a cut and fill volume cut sheet on this to see if there's any going to be balanced rock or not. That's GC1. GC2, to Sabrina's point, she picked up on that too as well. Show the clearing and grading that was shown on the original plan. And just for everyone's information, for the original engineer that showed clearing and gradings on this limit line were very unrealistic on all the lots, and we had a problem every time someone came in for a new development on this lot. So to Tom's point, I think his layout suits the new clearing and grading line well. And that other one we can just throw out because it's not worth much in my opinion. GC3, to Sabrina's point, it should show just for clarity so the planning board can see clearly the rock fill outline that the surveyor did pick up in his reconnaissance. And if the planning board is inclined, I'm sure they will. Obviously, we'll need a declaration for the new clearing and grading limit line for this application. The stone wall located along the easterly side of the lot line encroaches into that pedestrian access. That has to be removed out because that's all for future use, and that can't be blocking that in any way, shape, or form. So I would recommend when you reset your retaining wall, keep it at least 1 foot outside that easement line. And basically the rest of my items, GC7 and GC8, are basically notes and general comments with the retaining wall, minor comments with the retaining wall. And those are notes pertaining to the retaining wall. And GC9 is just general comments we'd like to see on all the plans that have site plan and grading that refer to the stormwater as-built and limits of disturbance being staked out by a licensed land surveyor. And that ends my comment review for this evening, Robert.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Alan, any questions, issues at all in Bob's comments?
I guess the only question I have, Bob, is there any way that we could view or somehow see the 1996 plan, or so we could obtain the pre-shot rock topography?
Absolutely. I'll be able to get that for you. It might be off-site in Amsterdam, but we can get those plans for you. That was done by Mr. Vanoli many years ago. And I will get that plan for you. I think it would be of help. At least it'll give you a general idea what the existing lay of the land was before they brought the rock in there. So I will get that for you, sir.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I could borrow it and I'll just return it.
Absolutely. No problem.
Thank you. No, the rest of it's all very straightforward. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Alan. Dennis, you had some comments?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Yeah, the wetlands, obviously, I concur. 2002, 4, 6, doesn't matter to me. I think we, could use an updated delineation, especially since, the proposed project obviously kind of abuts the line. So I think you're going to want some accuracy there. I guess with respect to what I'm referring to is the geologic Jenga that exists on the site, if you're familiar with that game. I know you guys have covered that, and that was just some of my concerns, that as long as it's recognized as, even though it's old, that it is a disturbance that, obviously needs to be accounted for. And, even in witnessing it and walking on it a bit, as you sort of like, there's no guarantee if you start to work on that pile and remove one, remove two, what then happens with slide and stability. So I'm glad that was picked up. With respect to the application, I can understand, it looks like that you had an inventory previously, and I understand the listing, and I think that's what accounts for the trees that are now numbered 1 to 32, but I guess had some confusion, since you guys were nice enough at the time, whenever the survey was originally done, to use the numbered tree tags. So I had problems correlating the labeling in the field with respect to the labeling in the application. So if there's a way to sort of, have it match, and then I could go back out there and just, do an assessment of, species, condition, et cetera. That's my comment on the application. As far as the replacement requirements, I know sometimes applicants, want to obviously propose and plant larger diameter trees, if they, want a certain feel and effect, shortly after construction. And I could work with that as far as the actual planting, but as far as, the way we interpret, for the code and the replacement requirements, you still want to have a control over of what, sort of that, breadth and spread of, woody plantings would be. So that's why we use that factor of 2.5-inch caliper to define a tree. So even though your larger proposed plantings may achieve the level of replaced diameter requirements, we still sort of have that other side of the equation is, well, what are the number of woody plantings that are going to meet that diameter? So that's why I had made the comments that, in consideration of all the, canopy trees that you're using, I think there is opportunity to, plant additional trees. And I would focus on the, the understory part of the canopy, because, that's not quite rising to the numerics of the code, but plus even just sort of taking a look at the site and, how it, I think, can companion well with the wetland, which does have a, definitely a pretty developed shrub layer. I think, and not within, sort of the property that would be used in terms of, lawn and access, but, closer to the rear. I think there's opportunity to do additional plantings to raise that understory requirement and, meet the numerics of the code as well as benefits to the site. I think that just about does it, because you guys definitely had covered a fair amount with the other items. So thank you.
Alan, you had a question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Let me ask Mr. Corrali. Well, I guess one of the concerns that we had, if we went to a smaller diameter tree, like a 2.5-inch tree, is that the numbers are getting huge, the number of trees to plant. And I don't know if there's any flexibility in that we have. Planting 66 trees on a 1.5 acre property being developed is a challenge. I don't know whether or not there's any flexibility that's provided by the town, maybe a partial replanting with, I don't know. I'm just looking for something.
Dennis offered an alternative using some shrubs that will go toward the measurement. Will that help?
Perhaps it will. Maybe I should take a look at that too.
Because we do have that flexibility now to offer those toward the replacement.
Right. I believe it was at 8 shrubs per, I think it's 8 is the number for a tree.
Yeah. Yes.
So what I think is important is to figure out, what's the objective, right? The objective is not to come up with the numbers that balance. The objective is to do what, right? Is to achieve what on the property. And the numbers are the mechanism by which we get there. But I think it's important to understand what the objective, to define the objective, and then we can play with the numbers to make it come out, hopefully to everybody's benefit. I think that I think it's important to identify, first of all, that we are talking about trees, but trees really contribute to what the real objective is, which is tree canopy, right? We want a massive tree canopy in town. And the reason you want tree canopy instead of individual trees is that tree canopy actually provide a habitat. So, right, we all know that. Tree canopy also provide, part of the tree canopy is the understory habitat. And all these things sort of go together. So I think that Dennis's offer of looking at some shrubs and the right mix of larger trees and smaller trees. I mean, the more trees you have, the denser the canopy will be. The more trees you have, the more opportunity you have for the better chance that the trees are going to, there's some are going to die. Doesn't matter how big they are. You're going to lose some trees in the process. The more trees you have, the more trees will survive the growing process. So I think that, and I'm not the one to know what the right mix is, Dennis is, but I think that to establish an understory as part of the overall tree canopy on the property that is a healthy, balanced mix that has a good opportunity to survive, to me is the objective. And there are specifics about the numbers and what you have to do, and the money you have to put in the tree bank. If you don't do that, that's all fine. We can work with those, but it's really the objective we need to keep our eyes open to, and eye on the prize here. And I'm guessing that by the time we come back and start to look at clearing and grading limit lines, that those lines are probably going to be drawn in areas in order to sort of protect that tree canopy and its understory from being from being damaged by maintenance, from too much human use, from clearing which is inappropriate. So the clearing and grading limit line will work in concert with that objective. So I'd encourage Dennis and the applicant to sort of dig into it with that in mind, and perhaps even come up in concert with that some recommendations for the planning board of where the clearing and grading limit lines might be on the property.
Thank you.
Yep, I concur with that statement. Very good. Thanks, Tom. Anyone else? Any other questions, comments?
Not at the moment. Thank you very much. Your comments have been very helpful.
All right, very good. Okay. So,
I'd like to thank everybody, myself, the applicant, Rob Balco. So I appreciate the comments and the input, and Alan and I will address those and resubmit accordingly.
okay, sounds good. So we'll hear you next time that you have your materials in ready. We'll hear from staff and we'll get you scheduled. We'll see where we are. All righty.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item is a request. These are requests for extensions of time. So the first one we have on our agenda is the Newcastle Fire Department, Fire District Number 1. This is the fire station and related facilities at 491 and 495 King Street, Chappaqua, New York. This is a request for an extension of approvals. We've seen a number of these. So Ed Frank, Chief Ed Frank is here, along with Lynn Weinig. Yes, there she is. I think last time we had an extension, we just asked as a matter of courtesy if they could just fill us in a little bit and tell us where we are, so we have a better feel as to what we might be looking at here for timing. So thank you very much for joining us.
Lynn or Joe, would you like to comment on this first?
Sure. I think Joe's going to be joining us, but I don't see that he's actually.
What's Joe's last name? Is it?
Montefiore.
Okay, let me bring him in. He's out there.
Oh, okay, good.
I think I've just lost everybody somehow.
Okay, Joe's here now as a panelist.
Felicia, did you make a note when Kanan joined us? She was here for the last application for a while.
I did.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Thank you for the reminder to unmute.
I got a little nervous there when my system shut down and brought me back in. So, but as Ed stated, my name is Joe Modafferi. I'm with JMC. I was the project manager on this project. Some of you may recall back when it was approved. I was involved in all the planning with Lynn and the fire district. And Ed had asked me to come and give you a quick update on where we are today and why we're here tonight for another extension. So I think it's obvious the number one reason why we're here right now is, essentially COVID is, has slowed a lot of stuff down, number one. But if you'll recall, back when we had our original approval, we got the district went out for a referendum for the project, which was denied. And then they did another referendum, which split the expansion and the part of the project that included purchasing the animal hospital property, demoing the animal hospital building, and removing the chlordane impacted soils. That referendum was approved, but the expansion referendum was not. So the applicant in 2018 went ahead, worked with your staff, the town staff, and got the necessary permits to do that work. They purchased the property, got the permits to demo the building and remove the soil. That work has since been completed, and as far as I'm aware, those permits have been closed out. And we have been working with the board over the last few months or so to focus very hard on trying to get the conditions of approval addressed, and we're looking to submit a package to Mr. Scioli in the very near future. We know that, we look forward to getting that to you soon, and the fire district is hoping that, as COVID comes to close in some way, that they'll be able to have public meetings to talk about the project and make sure that the public is aware of what they want to do and, what their plans are, so that hopefully the next time they go out for a referendum, the public is better informed and it will pass. So tonight we're here again for another extension, and, if the board has any questions for myself or Ed or Lynn, we're here to answer them.
Any questions, board members or staff? How extensive were the changes that you're looking at, Joe, from what we approved in terms of the building and footprint?
There's one minor change that was made that we discussed with Sabrina and Bob and the building inspector, but it was basically making a glass front on the building, which reduced the cost of the project and really improved the architecture. And, based on our discussions with Sabrina and Bob and the building inspector, we understood that that would be an architectural review board issue, which, we're looking to go to, as we get closer to going towards the referendum. Other than that, it's just addressing all the conditions. We had, 30 conditions of approval that we had to address before signing of the site plan. So revisions to the plans that were related to those conditions of approval. That's basically it. Adding notes, clarifying drainage, any number of other, detail-oriented type stuff that was discussed during the approval. Adding in the sidewalk along King Street, and a few other things. But we're a number of approval or conditions that we're working on addressing now.
Okay. So you're more than halfway or 2/3 of the way or 3/4 of the way through the conditions?
I think we're just about there. So I'm hoping in the next
What's there?
couple of weeks.
What's there?
I'm hoping to have something submitted to Bob within the next couple of weeks,
Okay, terrific.
if not sooner.
So can I ask just for further clarification? So it's essentially, it's the same building program and the same building floor plan and the same building, essentially the same building site plan as you had before that did not get approval or referendum approval, right?
That is correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
sorry, Tom, did I cut you off?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Just, when it comes to requests for extension of time, I'm always happy to personally to be supportive so long as the applicant is pursuing, the application diligently. It seems like that's happening here, so that's great. Just wanted to make a comment that you mentioned that, you were hoping that, well, we're all hoping that the COVID issue will end soon, but that in the context of being able to present to the public and invite the public in, I would just want to say that this forum, has a lot of drawbacks, but also has the positive aspect of perhaps being able to draw more members of the public in, and so having some sort of virtual participation can be something to consider also.
Understood. Understood.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, anyone else, any questions?
Nope.
Okay, if not, is there a resolution? Is there a motion to approve the request submitted by the applicant?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Those are aye for approval, right? Okay.
Yes.
All right, no opposed. Okay, motion's carried. So very good. Good luck and hope everything moves forward.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.
You too. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Joe.
No problem.
Okay, we go to our next item. This is an extension for Homeland Towers LLC, the T-Mobile Northeast LLC, New Singular Wireless PCS LLC, Town of Newcastle. This is an application for a special permit, wetlands permit, tree removal permit, and stormwater pollution prevention plan for a wireless telecommunication services facility on Barnes Lane. So we approved this a couple of years ago. I guess I don't see Mr. Snyder here, so I guess this is just a matter for the staff to fill us in. Are they moving forward? Again, so many things have been held up with COVID, as the other applicant discussed. Perfectly reasonable, but as far as you understand, are they making progress and moving forward?
I think so.
Yes, they are. They're finishing up the roadway. They had some problems with the asphalt, but they're making progress on what they're doing as far as submittal and the as-built on what we need for the stormwater, the asphalt, the fencing, the utilities. So they had quite a bit of work to do, but they're making pretty good progress.
Okay. Any objections to it? If not, is there a motion to grant the applicant the approval they've asked for? A motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay, so the motion's carried. And our last one is a request for an extension, 767 King Street LLC, the Chislehurst subdivision lot number 6. This is a request for an extension of approval site development plan, 767 Route 120. How are they doing, Bob and Sabrina?
Yeah, they're submitting items to Jen and I for review. I think they're going over a few items right now with the performance bond, maintenance bond, and Jen can chime in a little bit if she likes on this, but they are making progress on that.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, they absolutely are. They've submitted what they need to submit, and it's up to us to review the terms and conditions of what they've submitted. So that they're doing their homework.
Right. Okay. So if there are no objections, is there a motion to grant the applicant the extension that they've requested?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. So motion's carried and the extension is granted. We have the minutes of December 1, 2020 before us that Felicia has prepared. So we've had a chance to look at these. Any questions, changes from anyone on the minutes that Felicia has prepared? And if not, is there a motion to approve the minutes of December 1, 2020?
So moved.
Okay, second,
Second.
okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, motion's carried, so the minutes are approved. And I think that brings us to the end of our agenda for this evening. I guess we're planned to meet on Thursday, right? 6:30, Sabrina,
Correct,
on the form-based code, next steps.
correct.
Oh.
And documents were circulated today for everybody to review.
Yep,
Yep, got it. Thank you.
thank you.
Bob,
Yes, sir.
I've got a sort of a new business question or just a query to Sabrina. I understand that the town is working on, I may have the nomenclature wrong, but an open space overlay district or overlay mapping of some kind for the town. What, do you know anything about that?
We are working on a parks and open space plan, master plan.
Mm-hmm.
There has been discussion of doing connections and whatnot between open spaces, but as of right now, we're just kind of fooling around with some rough outlines, sketches type of thing. Is that what you were looking for?
I guess so. I mean, I don't know what I'm looking for. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah. So
I think a few of us were contacted by the Conservation Board, and I was unable to open up, and I guess it was some sort of like doodle poll to find out what might be a good time. And I just couldn't get the thing open. So I sent a note back to Lucille and said I couldn't open it. And I don't know if Tom, if you received it or anyone else received it, but I guess the Conservation Board is looking at something on a global basis for the town. And they're trying to get participation from various boards and commissions throughout the town. It seemed to be an initiative for beautification. That seemed to be the goal, and that they just wanted to hear from various boards what we do, for example, in the planning board when we look at applications. And I think we had, a very good example this evening when Tom's comments about the understory and the trees and how we replace and how Dennis monitors that and how that all comes to how that puzzle, works with, that part works in the puzzle, I should say.
So Bob,
maybe Dennis, you want to add something to that since you kind of, work with the Conservation Board more readily?
Sure. I happen to have, I guess it was a Monday, March 8th email that Lucille had sent to various board members. I see Bart of DPW. It looks like Jill, Lori, and myself were copied. And it was a Newcastle Conservation Board landscape coordination effort, I guess was the subject. And I know that Lori Morton, who's on the BAB, and then I guess was also in attendance at the last Conservation Board meeting. I think some of her comments and I guess discussion, kind of provided this sort of inspiration or initiative. And I think, ultimately it's sort of like a coordination effort. I guess to what the chairman was saying about, obviously, it did sound like, Mr. Curley was, espousing, definitely, an extensive botanical and ecological discussion there. So, I think that Lori was just sort of looking to, bring everybody together to say, if we could, maybe align better or, just so that we're not duplicating efforts, possibly just, sort of having this, type of discussion, every once in a while, whatever, biannually, quarterly, whatever. I remember that discussion and that sort of being the messaging. And then when I saw this email, I guess this is, sort of how the, Conservation Board took it to sort of address maybe some of the things that they were, concerned with or thinking about, and just getting sort of other input. This way they would have that, or achieve that, sort of coordination and hear other comments, or, not stepping on an initiative that maybe was already underway.
So
That's kind of how I.
Sorry, Dennis, go ahead.
No, that was it. That was how I kind of processed it all, just from that.
So I've ended up, I don't know whether I'm formally a member or an ad hoc member. It's not entirely certain to me, my standing, but I
You
meet.
were appointed. I received that. You're in.
Okay. Dennis has anointed me
Congratulations.
as a member of the Conservation Board. And so I've been attending some meetings since, goodness sakes, I guess it was late last year. I'm not quite sure. And there are a number of initiatives. It's really very, very impressive what the Conservation Board does. It's really, really impressive. The extent to which they deal with things at the micro level, all the way up to the macro level, with just a tremendous amount of energy. Sorry, let me get rid of this. So one of the things that it was sort of end of the year and time to sort of put together what do you call it? A work plan, goals and objectives for the new year. And they've been working on that, and discussions came up of, well, gee, and I use the example of the planning board. The planning board has an awful lot of responsibility with respect to the tree ordinance, and that maybe there could be some better coordination between the boards that sort of touch on the environment. And it's obviously the planning board with respect to what we do with steep slopes and water and wetlands and so on. The Conservation Board, Parks and Recreation. There are a number of boards that actually, touch on this and do their independent things and follow their, take care of their responsibilities. But the thought was that maybe we could be better coordinated. I mean, we're one town. And one of the things that we thought would be helpful for the Conservation Board to do is to find out, to decide with the town board, which of the other boards in town could use a advisor from the Conservation Board in on their meetings when there were matters that came up that touched heavily on the environment. And we had one tonight. We had one with the Kingfisher Preserve, and we thought it would be important to sort of get their ear. It might be important for the other boards to get their ear, to not to get their ear, but to hear them speak on what they thought was important and what their initiatives were that might relate to applications that we were hearing. And the thought was that maybe should start by having a meeting of some few representatives from all those boards, one joint meeting where everybody gets together and talks about that as a coordination strategy, and whether, to the extent that those boards can contribute to, how that might happen and when that might happen. And I think that might be the email that went out. And I believe, I know that the town board supports this, and Lori is on the town board, appears to be the one town board member who is mostly coordinating with the Conservation Board on these things and with Dennis on these things. So I think that's where it originated, and that's the spirit of the whole thing.
Great. Okay. Thank you for the background. It's very interesting. Okay. Well, Dennis, will you be forwarding more information to us as this develops, as the coordinator with the Conservation Board?
Sure. We meet once a month, and that's probably how it's going to go. I would say yes.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Okay. Anyone else? Anything?
So
Um,
just as just as an example, just on point, getting back to what the Parks and Recreation is doing with respect to open space and linkages and so on. That's information that would be extremely useful, I think, to our work and reviewing applications, because we tend to get information from applicants which are essentially the property and then one lot removed, and that's the surround that that we're limited to, unless we take the initiatives to go out and say, well, we need to know what's over there and what's over here, and how are the what's the habitat like. That kind of a mapping that they're putting together for the purposes of their master plan, I think would be something that we ought to be kept up to date on, and be a tool which is available to us for our work. So that's one example of the kind of coordination which could happen, which I think could be very beneficial, not only for us, but also for them to help support, what their initiatives are with respect to land and open space, and get their input on all of that stuff. So that's one example.
Good. I recall that Steve Coleman worked on this a while ago. Dick, do you recall that also, with the coordination and the various trails? And there was a time where we really looked at that very carefully. We had some, major subdivisions in town, and those trails were very much a part of the approval process and how those things were coordinated. I mean, we're looking at some smaller things right now, so we don't really see some of these larger tracts of land. But I think it's very, very important.
I can tell you that work that Steve had done, we're trying to resurrect it. We don't have it, a lot of it digitally, but that's part of what my office is working on right now. And absolutely, as things get developed, I think that they are definitively tools for all the boards to be utilizing and sharing. So we will definitely keep you updated. The work on this is slow going with all of the other priorities we're working on, but we're making some headway.
Great, thank you.
Good, great. Okay, anyone else, anything?
I just wanted to
Go
add
ahead.
that there's, I've put together comments and put them into the same document that Tom, you shared earlier on bulk and height. I just want to make sure everyone has it.
Yes.
I'm not sure that's the document that everything is being put in for the form-based codes comments, but that's where I added information.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so please feel free to add comments, edits before we
Okay.
Thursday.
I got it, Con, thank you.
I'm just going to make a comment here. We have one document going around, so I will resend that after I add Kanan's comments tomorrow.
Sorry, yeah. I apologize. I didn't know which is the document.
No worries.
No worries.
Dick, were you trying to say something?
Yes, I just want to advise Bob Cioli that on the short form for the last project we just talked about, the super triangle, that the items 17 and 18 on page 3 have screwy answers. I think the wrong boxes in some cases were not checked. They were checked wrong. So Bob, if you could look into that, then that might save, going through it the next time.
Will do. Thank you. Thank you, Dick.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Anyone else, anything? If not, is there a motion to close the meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Good night, all.